So some news within the NFC East from, I think, this morning, the other day, whatever it was. Joe Judge, the head coach for the New York Giants, will be given another year to coach next year, which is kind of crazy. You know, they fired Jason Garrett as their offensive coordinator, and that was the least of their worries, the least of their problems. Joe Judge will be the Giants head coach for one more year, which I think there's more issues than just Joe Judge and Jason Garrett, which I think is David Gettleman too, their GM, because, you know, they spent a lot of money, gave $72 million to Kenny Galladay, which, you know, really hasn't played that many games and has always been hurt. And I don't think Galladay's the number one receiver, and I never thought he was either, but I guess the Giants were, you know, they needed somebody to match up with Shepard and some of the other guys that they, you know, have as well. Darius, Tony, and some of the other guys. So that's going to be one more year for Joe Judge, and I think that's going to be his last year. I mean, if the Giants don't really pull anything next year, don't really do anything within the division next year, I think he's going to be gone, and that's probably just going to happen. So that's news within the Giants. And I think I want to talk about Darius Slay, cornerback for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm telling you, man, like, it has been such a long time we haven't had a number one corner for this team. He's only averaged, 32 yards? I think, he's only given up like 32 yards against receivers. I mean, scored, 3 touchdowns in 5 weeks. I mean, he has done a really good job. Steven Nelson is probably the one that everyone's not really high on, which I don't think Steven Nelson's really played bad that much. I know teams have been picking on him a little bit, but at the same time, we have no pass rush, and still the corners have been pretty much the focal point and the big strength of our defense, which every year our defensive line is always good with depth and everything else, but it just hasn't shown up. But these cornerbacks, Avonte Maddox and Darius Slay, Steven Nelson, not even just that, but you have more competition next year. You have Tay Gowan from the Zach Ertz trade, Zach McPherson, a fourth-round pick from Texas Tech that is more of a project, really, and I think just needs more work to see what he could do. But going into next year for the Philadelphia Eagles, I mean, if Darius Slay is his last year is next year, the year after, whatever it is. I think next year is his last year of his contract. Correct me if I'm wrong. If it's not, then I think they should extend him for another maybe 2 years after next year, if that's the case. I think he could play for another few years. I mean, I think he still got it well in his prime. I think he's played the best football probably in his career on the Eagles that he has with Detroit his whole career, honestly. I know he spent more years there, but man, he has really turned into something special with the Eagles, and I think he loves his team. He loves his teammates, and I think, the Eagles, if Steven Nelson is on a 1-year deal this year, so he can leave in free agency. He could walk into free agency after this year if he starts guaranteeing more money from the Eagles, unless he doesn't care and, loves the relationship he has with Darius Slay. You have two corners that are aging corners right now. I think Steven Nelson is 29, 30 years old, 29, something like that. So he's, in his prime right now. And Darius Slay is well in his prime and just playing just fantastic football. If Steven Nelson does walk into free agency, you have, I'm not saying dip in the free agency for corners. I'm done with dipping in the free agency for corners. They just cost way too much money, and half the time they just don't produce what they should produce. I think if the Eagles really want to go a different route, depending on what they do in free agency to the time of the draft, they could go after corner in the first round. There's about 4 or 5 corners that are pretty good that can go in the first 2 to 3 rounds. And really, get a number one corner in here. So after Darius Slay leaves, that'll be your guy. You know what I mean? You don't want to go down to having no cornerbacks. This has been a big problem with the Eagles for a long time. Even with the Super Bowl year, you had a really good defensive line that bandaged up that defense. Darby and Jalen Mills aren't, high-profiled corners in the league, but it worked out in the system that they were in. So it all worked out in the end. But when it comes to getting that young corner that you want, like, this is the dream that I have, is developing, drafting a corner in the first round, developing him and him being here his whole career. That's what I want from the Philadelphia Eagles. That's what I want them to do. Obviously, am I big at getting a cornerback in the first round this year? Probably not. It's more of edge rusher, linebacker, or safety at this point. It's defense mostly with those first 2 picks, which it looks like we're going to have 3 first-rounders, which one of them will get traded back just because you're not picking 3 players in the first round. It's not happening. They're not paying 3 guys in the first round. So It's going to be interesting what they do, but, I think we should be very fortunate. Even last year, everyone was dogging on Darius Slay because he gave up 2 100-yard games, probably had his worst year last year, which still was a good year for Darius Slay, but this year, nothing compared. I mean, he's only given up a little over 30 yards to receivers. I mean, that's pretty much it. And, teams are afraid to throw his way. And, I know Jonathan Gann, the defensive coordinator, is not the best defensive coordinator we've seen, and obviously he's got a lot of flaws, and I'm not really high on him staying after this year, but you know what, depending what they do in free agency, if Steven Nelson does walk, they could go after corner in the first round, they could do some different things, I don't know. But they got to fix this position, definitely. And I think keeping Darius Slay and having a young guy on the other side, if like I said, if Steven Nelson walks, is going to help. He can mentor the kid and do some good things. So other than that, that's pretty much it. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about Darius Slay getting an extension, if you guys want that. And obviously Joe Judge staying with New York Giants for another year. How you guys feel about that. So other than that, guys, that's pretty much it. I will see you guys later. Shakes, go up, follow, slide. Peace out, guys. Peace.